What if I told you there's a country whose capital city sits higher than most airplanes cruise? Or that one nation's capital was literally built on a swamp and still sinks a little every single year? There are 195 countries on this planet, each one with a capital that carries a story most people have never heard. Today, we're going on a world tour you didn't know you needed. 50 mind-blowing facts about countries and their capitals. Buckle up, because by the end of this video, you'll see the world map in a completely different way. I'm starting with the one that surprises almost everyone who hears it. Fact number 1. Let's start with a surprising one from South America. Bolivia has 2 capitals. Yes, 2. Sucre is the constitutional capital, home to the Supreme Court. But La Paz is the seat of government and the executive capital. And here's the kicker. La Paz sits at nearly 3,650 meters above sea level, making it the highest seat of government anywhere on Earth. Visitors routinely feel dizzy just walking up a flight of stairs. Fact 2. And this one might make you uncomfortable if you don't like surprises. Naypyidaw, the capital of Myanmar, was built from scratch in the middle of the jungle, completed in just 4 years. The city has a 20-lane highway, with almost no traffic. It was deliberately placed far from the coast and far from the old capital, Yangon. The city is so vast that getting from one building to another often requires a car ride. Fact number 3. The coldest place on Earth. Which capital is the coldest in the entire world? It's Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. The city regularly hits minus 40 degrees Celsius in January. That's so cold. That's so cold. Your breath freezes into tiny ice crystals the moment it leaves your mouth. A phenomenon locals call diamond dust. Fact number 4, a strategic decision. Ottawa, Canada, picked as the capital specifically because of geography. In the 1850s, Queen Victoria herself had to choose between Toronto, Quebec City, Kingston, and Montreal, all bitterly competing. She picked Ottawa partly because it was harder to attack, sitting right on the border of Ontario and Quebec. Fact number 5, the smallest population. The smallest capital city by population in the world? Nyarulmud, in Palau. It has a population of just a few hundred people. The entire government fits in one building, and that building has a copper dome modeled after the US Capitol, in a city of barely 300 people. Fact number 6, the windiest capital. Wellington, New Zealand, known as the windiest capital on Earth. Winds here regularly exceed 100 kilometers per hour. Locals call it Windy Welly. Yet despite the weather, it consistently ranks among the world's most livable cities. If you're enjoying these unbelievable facts, make sure to subscribe, because it only gets crazier from here. Fact number 7, geothermal energy. Reykjavik, Iceland, the northernmost capital of any sovereign state in the world, and it runs almost entirely on geothermal energy. Iceland's entire capital is heated by the earth itself. Hot water is piped directly from volcanic springs underground. Fact number 8, the city-state story. Singapore is one of the only city-states in the world, meaning the entire country is also its own capital. It covers just 733 square kilometers. You can drive across it in about 45 minutes, yet it's one of the wealthiest countries per capita on the entire planet. Fact number 9, American designers. Canberra, Australia, a capital city literally designed by an American couple. After Sydney and Melbourne spent years arguing over which should be the capital, Australia held an international competition to design a brand new city. The Griffins from Chicago won in 1912. Fact number 10, a natural fortress. Muscat, Oman's capital, sits surrounded by dramatic rocky mountains on 3 sides. For centuries, those mountains made it nearly impenetrable. Sailors from around the world called it one of the most spectacular harbor entrances in all of Asia. I promised you the capital that moved in the middle of the night, and here it is. In 2005, Myanmar's military government announced, with almost no warning, that the nation's capital was being relocated from Yangon to a brand new city called Naypyidaw. Civil servants were told to pack their desks. Government trucks moved furniture through the night. In less than a year, an entirely new capital city existed in the jungle. Even citizens woke up to the news. The world scratched its head. International diplomats were baffled, and the streets of Naypyidaw remain eerily empty to this day. If that surprised you, just wait. Coming up, we have the capital with a name so long even locals refuse to say it in full. I promised you the capital that moved in the middle of the night, and here it is. In 2005, Myanmar's military government announced, with almost no warning, that the nation's capital was being relocated from Yangon to a brand new city called Naypyidaw. Civil servants were told to pack their desks. Government trucks move furniture through the night. In less than a year, an entirely new capital city existed in the jungle. Even citizens woke up to the news. The world scratched its head. International diplomats were baffled, and the streets of Naypyidaw remain eerily empty to this day. If that surprised you, just wait. Coming up, we have the capital with a name so long, even locals refuse to say it in full. Fact 11. Bern, Switzerland. Bern is the capital of Switzerland, but hardly anyone outside Europe knows this. Most people guess Zurich or Geneva. Both are larger and more internationally famous. But Bern, with its medieval arcades and bears, the city is actually named after them, has been the federal city since 1848. Fact 12. The airplane city. Brasilia, Brazil's capital, was carved out of raw wilderness in just 41 months. In 1960, the entire government moved from Rio de Janeiro to a city that barely existed. Viewed from above, Brasilia is designed in the shape of an airplane or a bird in flight. It's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Fact 13. Astana, Kazakhstan. Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, was renamed 4 times in recent decades. First called Akmola, then Astana, then Nur-Sultan, and now back to Astana. It's a futuristic city rising from the Kazakh steppe, with temperatures ranging from -40 in winter to +40 in summer. Fact 14. Lima, Peru. Lima, Peru sits on a coastal desert, making it one of the driest capital cities on Earth. The city is perpetually covered in a thick coastal fog called garua. Despite no rainfall, millions of people thrive there. Water comes almost entirely from the Andes Mountains. Fact 15. Valletta, Malta. Valletta, Malta, the smallest capital city in the European Union. Its entire urban core covers less than 1 square kilometer. Yet within that tiny space, it holds more historical monuments per square meter than any other city in Europe. Fact 16. Dublin, Ireland. Dublin, Ireland's capital, sits on the River Liffey, a name that comes from an old Irish word meaning dark pool. The city's original Norse name was Dublin, meaning exactly that. Dublin has been continuously inhabited for over 1,000 years. Fact 17. Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's capital, means new flower in Amharic. It's one of the highest capital cities in Africa. It's also the diplomatic capital of Africa, home to the African Union. Fact 18. Tegucigalpa. Tegucigalpa, Honduras, one of the longest capital names in the Americas. The name means Silver Hills. The city was originally a mining settlement founded in the 1500s. Fact 19. Zagreb, Croatia. Zagreb, Croatia sits on the southern slopes of Mount Medvednica, whose name literally means Bear Mountain. The city's medieval Latršćak Tower still marks the time. A cannon has been fired from it every day at noon for over 150 years. Fact 20. Podgorica, Montenegro. Podgorica is the capital of Montenegro, and the country's name Montenegro means Black Mountain in Italian. The local name, Crnogora, means the exact same thing. The mountains were so dark with pine forests that sailors could see them from far out at sea. Fact 21. Suva, Fiji. Suva, the capital of Fiji, is the largest city in the Pacific Island nations east of Australia. It sits on a peninsula surrounded by water on 3 sides, and it receives an extraordinary 3,000 millimeters of rainfall every year. Fact 22. The Kathmandu Valley. Kathmandu, Nepal's capital, sits in a valley at 1,400 meters altitude, completely surrounded by the Himalayas. The valley was once a prehistoric lake. Over thousands of years it drained, leaving behind incredibly fertile soil. Ancient legend says a god cut the valley open with a sword to let the water escape. Fact 23. And yes, this is the one with the impossibly long name. The full ceremonial name of Bangkok, Thailand's capital, is officially the longest place name in the world. Are you ready? Krungtep Mahanakon Amon Ratanakosin Mahintara, Ayuthaya Mahadilok Fop Noparat, Ratchathani Burirom Udomrachani Wet, Mahasathan Amon Piman Awatan Sathit Sakathatya Witsanukam Prasit. That's 168 characters. Locals simply call it Krung Thep, which means City of Angels. Los Angeles, by the way, also means City of Angels. Coincidence. Fact 24. Madrid, Spain. Madrid, Spain, sits at almost the exact geographical center of the country. Cinematic city view of Madrid. There's a plaque outside the Puerta del Sol in the heart of Madrid. It's the official kilometer zero of all roads in Spain. Every road distance is measured from that single stone slab. Fact 25. Baku, Azerbaijan. Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, sits 28 meters below sea level. That makes it the lowest national capital in the world. It sits on the Caspian Sea coast, technically an inland sea, and the largest lake on Earth by surface area. Fact 26. Nairobi, Kenya. Nairobi, Kenya's capital, started life as a railway depot in 1899. British engineers chose the spot because it was a flat, swampy plain. From a muddy rail camp, it grew into one of Africa's most vibrant and fastest-growing cities. Fast-paced montage of Nairobi's modern high-rise buildings. Fact 27. Mexico City. Mexico City, one of the largest cities in the world, is built on a lake. The Aztec capital Tenochtitlan was constructed on an island in Lake Texcoco. When Spanish colonists arrived, they drained the lake. Today, the city sinks by up to 50 centimeters every year because the old lake bed is still compressing. Fact 28. Funafuti, Tuvalu. Funafuti, the capital of Tuvalu, sits on a coral atoll in the Pacific. The island is just 20 meters wide in some places. With rising sea levels, scientists consider it one of the most threatened capitals on Earth. Fact 29. Amsterdam, Netherlands. Amsterdam is the official capital of the Netherlands, but the actual seat of government is The Hague. Parliament and the royal residence are all in The Hague. Amsterdam is the constitutional capital, but not the functional one. The Dutch have simply decided both cities can share the role. Fact 30. Andorra la Vella. Andorra la Vella, the capital of Andorra, sits at 1,023 meters, making it the highest capital in all of Europe. Andorra is a co-principality, and they're not even Andorran. The ruling princes are the President of France and the Bishop of Urgell, Spain. Fact 31. New Zealand's decision. Wellington, New Zealand became the capital partly because South Islanders felt ignored. When Auckland was the first capital, people in the South said it was too far away. So in 1865, the government literally packed up and moved south to Wellington. Fact 32. The Muddy Confluence. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's capital, literally translates to muddy confluence, named for the murky junction of two rivers where it was founded. From that muddy beginning, it grew into a city famous for the Petronas Twin Towers, once the tallest buildings on Earth. Fact 33. A green harbor. Copenhagen, Denmark, the first city in the world to have a formal plan to become carbon neutral. Its harbor water is now so clean that residents swim in it during summer, right in the city center. Fact 34. A rainforest capital. Paramaribo, the capital of Suriname in South America, is the only capital in South America where Dutch is the official language. Suriname is the smallest country in South America, and it sits in a rainforest covering 90% of the nation. Fact 35. Art Deco in Africa. Asmara, the capital of Eritrea, is a UNESCO World Heritage City famous for something unexpected: Art Deco architecture. When Italy colonized the region in the 1930s, they built the city like a showpiece. Today, walking through Asmara feels like stepping into a 1930s Italian city. Coming up next, the world's newest capital, born in the 21st century. Stay with me, we're nearly there. And the final fact might be the most surprising one of all. Fact 36. A purpose-built capital. Dodoma, Tanzania, one of the world's newer purpose-built capitals, chosen to replace Dar es Salaam in the 1970s. Many offices still operate from Dar es Salaam. Dodoma sits in the dry heart of the country, deliberately chosen to develop Tanzania's interior. Fact 37. An uninhabited start. Port Louis, Mauritius, the capital of an island that has no indigenous population. Mauritius was completely uninhabited when the Dutch arrived in the 1600s. The nation is one of the most ethnically diverse in the world, with Indian, African, Chinese, and European communities all calling it home. Fact 38. Straddling the equator. Tarawa, the capital atoll of Kiribati, straddles the equator. Kiribati is so spread out across the Pacific that it covers 3 time zones. It's also one of the first countries expected to be seriously affected by rising sea levels. Fact 39. The suburb capital. Sri Jayawardene Purakota is the official capital of Sri Lanka, but assumed to be Colombo, which is the commercial capital and much larger. Sri Jayawardene Purakota is technically a suburb of Colombo, but it's the legal administrative capital. Fact 40. A historical campaign. Honiara, the capital of Solomon Islands, sits on the island of Guadalcanal. During World War II, this was the site of an intense campaign. Today, old aircraft and ships rest on the ocean floor nearby, making it a world-famous diving destination. Fact 41. Moroni, Comoros. Moroni, the capital of Comoros, sits on an active volcano, Mount Karthala. The volcano last erupted in 2005. It's one of the largest active calderas in the world. The city continues to grow around it. Locals live with the rumble underfoot. Fact 42. Pirate Haven. Nassau, capital of the Bahamas, was once one of the most famous pirate havens in the world. New Providence Island sheltered Blackbeard and other notorious pirates. Today, it's one of the Caribbean's most visited destinations. Fact 43. Thimphu, Bhutan. Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, is one of the only capitals in the world with no traffic lights, even today. Instead, traffic police officers direct vehicles. When the city tried installing traffic lights once, residents found them impersonal. They were removed. Fact 44. Rabat, Morocco. Rabat, Morocco's capital, is often overshadowed by Casablanca, the famous commercial hub. But Rabat is the seat of the king and government. It's a city of boulevards, gardens, and one of the best preserved medieval walled cities in North Africa. Fact 45. Libreville, Gabon. Libreville, capital of Gabon, literally means free town in French. It was founded as a settlement for freed enslaved people in the 1840s, a parallel to Freetown in Sierra Leone and Monrovia in Liberia. Its very name carries that history. Fact 46. Nuku'alofa, Tonga. Nuku'alofa, capital of Tonga, is the seat of the last remaining Polynesian monarchy. Tonga was never officially colonized. The only Pacific nation to maintain that distinction throughout the entire colonial era. Fact 47. Tana, Madagascar. Antananarivo, usually shortened to Tana, is the capital of Madagascar. The island is so biologically unique that 90% of its wildlife is exclusive. The capital sits in the island's central highlands at 1,276 meters altitude. Fact 48. Dili, Timor-Leste. Dili, the capital of Timor-Leste, is the capital of one of the world's youngest countries. Timor-Leste gained independence in 2002. It was the first new sovereign state of the 21st century. The country sits on the eastern half of a small island north of Australia. Fact 49. Alofi, Niue. Niue, a small Pacific island nation, has its capital in Alofi. With only around 2,500 residents, it's one of the smallest self-governing nations. And it has one of the world's fastest internet connections per capita. The entire island was blanketed with free Wi-Fi. And now, Fact 50, the one I promised you at the very start. Fact 50. Yamoussoukro. Yamoussoukro is the official capital of Côte d'Ivoire, but almost no international organizations are located there. Activity is still in Abidjan. But Yamoussoukro has something extraordinary. The Basilica of Our Lady of Peace, the largest church building in the entire world. It can hold 18,000 worshippers. It was inspired by St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. It sits in a city of just 300,000 people, and nobody talks about it. 195 countries, 195 capitals, and every single one of them has a story most textbooks never bother to tell. A city built on a lake that's still slowly sinking. A capital with no traffic lights, by choice. A church bigger than St. Peter's in a small African town. The world is endlessly surprising if you know where to look. If you watched this all the way through, you now know things about this planet that most people will never learn. Drop a comment below. Which fact surprised you the most? And if you want more journeys like this one, hit subscribe. We do this every week. See you on the next one.